Afternoon. So, topic is evolution of on-chain liquidity provision. Presenters are my colleague Austin Adams and myself, researchers at Uniswap Labs. So I'm second time on the stage now. Quick intro. So my name is Shin. I'm on that side. And researcher here used to be at AQR, which is a systematic hedge fund. And Austin.
So I'm Austin Adams. I have been at Uniswap Labs for almost a year, and before that I was a researcher at the Federal Reserve in DC. So former TradFi baby.
Yep, both formal TradFi here. Okay, so topic today, Uniswap v4, which is not the topic today. The topic today is basically the history of evolution of on-chain liquidity provision, going from some failed attempts at the beginning of blockchain development, all the way to what we think is some promising designs in the future. So 4 topics. First one is what we're observing, that on-chain liquidity provision is getting more and more competitive. I'll cover a few examples of where people are finding competition. And then Austin, who is the main speaker today, will cover the rest of the, the rest of the speech. On-chain liquidity is facilitating more utility, is increasingly transparent, and then some future designs. So on-chain liquidity provision, this is a very controversial topic on Twitter. People are complaining that you can no longer deposit money and earn 30% annualized yield guaranteed, which you would expect in any market, maybe not in this market without a history. But here's how on-chain liquidity has developed into Uniswap v3. So at first, you have blockchain and nothing on it. Then you have blockchain with some proposed exchange structure, but they did not work. Specifically, you have examples like Oasis, Ether Delta, etc. And what they tried was they tried to replicate what has worked in TradFi directly on a blockchain. And so if you want to provide liquidity in the market, you list limit orders. And then people would execute against you. And if you observe that in real life the market price has changed, you then have to pool liquidity, which you have to pay gas. As you know, gas price can be as high as tens to hundreds of dollars at once. And so if you're just updating your belief, but you have to pay $20 for each order, no one is going to do that to start with. And so that's kind of the first lesson that people learn, that on-chain central limit order books, by just directly replicating, does not work. What did work is, something that Uniswap v1 has popularized. There's also Bancor, which I think technically is even before Uniswap v1. And the lesson there is constant function market makers, as simple as they seem, they actually work. And the main friction that they have reduced is this need to constantly update your limit order, or to update your kind of belief as reflected in the market. That lasted a little while until we shipped Uniswap v2, which enabled basically direct trading between any ERC20 pairs. And that kind of exploded in DeFi summer. And the takeaway is very consistent with Uniswap v1. Whatever that reduces friction is a big, big improvement in a constrained environment like on the blockchain, where any friction means dollars lost. So the new thing that's being discussed recently is this increased competition between LPs. Specifically, there are a couple of LPs who's been earning most of the fees, and then there are smaller LPs complaining that they're being squeezed by more competitive competitors, which in the traditional finance market you do see a lot, as you see like Citadel and XTX, etc. quote 90% of all the market depth, or is counterparty to most of the flow. And on the other hand, like in DeFi, you are seeing more and more kind of advantage coming from having a large pocket, which means rebalance and gas cost means much less of transaction cost to you. And then being able to actively manage your position means that you're in range most of the time, you're actively participating instead of just giving up opportunity cost. Specifically, we have posted a blog post on just-in-time liquidity, which is kind of the extreme version of actively managed liquidity. And this liquidity usually just supply liquidity for one particular swap, usually a very, very large one. And so you can think of it as kind of a sandwich, but the sandwich is really you sandwich liquidity on both sides of a swap. And the end result is the swapper actually get better execution, and you, instead of earning the differential in buying and selling, you're earning the fee, and you have to hedge your kind of changed exposure somewhere else. Usually I would bet on Binance or something. And this extreme version of actively managed liquidity requires very sophisticated kind of technical knowledge and also off-chain liquidity sources. So yeah, if you're interested, the detailed analysis as well as some theoretical results are on the Uniswap blog. And just to show you what I meant by the competition, so what I'm showing here is a time series as demonstrated in the animation. So this is like a pool's liquidity going through time. The line that's shifting around is market mid. So as you can imagine, as time goes, the asset price changes, so the pool mid price changes. And you can see that liquidity is actively being redeployed around market mid. And some of those spikes that you would see are like extremely concentrated, or maybe just-in-time liquidity that's being put right around where market mid is. And you see sometimes they screw up, right? Like that tall liquidity is not being taken out. So they're kind of wasting money by leaving money there and not doing anything. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a direct intuition of how competitive the market is. I'm going to hand over to Austin now.
So one of the other things that we've been seeing a lot of is liquidity has been used for more real-world utility and applications. So for Uniswap v3 specifically, we've seen a growth of LP positions being used as the base layer for new protocols. Two big examples are the Panoptic protocol and the Infinity pools, who are both providing like options on Uniswap assets, or they're providing leverage on Uniswap assets. And they use these sort of Uniswap v3 LP positions as their own sort of like what they build on top of. And then another super cool, interesting like discovery we've seen is the usage of v3 as like a price discovery layer. So two examples are the Paper protocol, which does NFT lending, and they use the Uniswap pools to find interest rates. So they use it as sort of an example of like a known, very well executed smart contract that does execution. So they can trust it. They don't have to deal with that. They just sort of trust that the Uniswap v3 protocol works, and then they can build on top of it. And another one is Squeeth, which does levered ETH perpetuals by the Open team. So they use Uniswap v3 totally, and they allow you to sort of get these 2 times levered ETH positions just purely on Uniswap, only using Uniswap v3 as price discovery. And another thing we've seen is FX remittances. So this is like a piece that we recently put out in January, and this shows a hypothetical cost of using DeFi for FX and doing remittances on it. So you can see that remittances are almost like 80% cheaper than they would be on like a traditional bank. So what we did is we just sort of got the costs of like doing a transaction, and we showed that like today, FX transactions are a lot cheaper, and so if we can bring it to more people and sort of expand it, it would be very helpful for a lot of people around the world who don't have a lot of access to like high quality capital. And another interesting thing we wanted to show was like on-chain liquidity has been becoming increasingly transparent, and there's actually a lot of people who study it. So this is a few of our pieces. So we did a piece about V2 and V3 fee returns. We did a piece about market depth, and then we did a piece about like a Uniswap V3 math primer. And this is sort of a few pieces that we've put out to support the ecosystem and support understanding of like DEX versus DEX and DEX versus centralized exchanges, and supporting the crypto ecosystem through like V3 math primers and things like that. We understand V3 math is confusing and it's hard, so we sort of want to support people with that. And this is a few pieces that other people have done, so we want to shout out some of the people who have pushed forth Uniswap and pushed forth V3. And we think that Uniswap has been a success because of the community, and the community has really rallied around it. So we wanted to shout out some people. So first, we have a few pieces that people have seen on Twitter and have sort of been made like big splashes. And so one of them is this lever paper, which is path-independent LP returns, which is sort of just an interesting new way to think about LP returns. And then we have the markout analysis that's been really popular on Twitter, and we refer to it as the markout incident in the Uniswap V3 or the Uniswap research team, where we sort of came out and we were like, "This query is wrong," and it was not wrong, and we were wrong, and then we got ratioed on Twitter really hard. So we appreciate those people being very strong and keeping their beliefs not folding. So that sort of pushed the ecosystem forward, and it helps sort of the whole community understand how we think about V3. And then another cool one is Doug from CrocSwap and OX FBI Femboy, which I think is always funny that you have to talk to people like that. They did some cool pieces on Uniswap V3 flow and how you can sort of look at who's trading on Uniswap, what they're trading, and how you can sort of build the next generation of protocols to sort of improve liquidity, improve LP returns. And then finally, Charlie Marketplace at Flipside did a Uniswap V3 retrospective according to a permanent loss, and sort of put all his methodology, made it all public. And so it was very helpful for sort of the community, and we really appreciate that. And we've also seen a sort of big growth of AMM market structure pieces that have come out. So Xenophon Labs and Panoptic and Primitive have done a few pieces on how AMMs can evolve into like V4 version. And so currently they just have been sort of pushing together, like pushing what a new version of protocol could be and how we could improve it. So the Primitive team and Panoptic and Xenophon have been really great. And then finally, I wanted to shout out the thought leadership and the teams that we've worked with from academia. So we have like professors from Berkeley and Columbia and Harvard and UChicago, UCalgary and Circle, and they've been very helpful and they've been really great. So you should go look at their pieces because they're doing some great stuff. So, and then finally, we wanted to talk about like how we think about on-chain liquidity provision and how the future will be like. So first, we think that there'll be a lot of rethinking of what it needs to be an LP. So first, there's sort of things like TWAM, which is like time-weighted average market makers, which we think will sort of improve. It's sort of like TWAP in traditional markets. And then we have like the MCAMM, which is the MEV capturing AMM, which we think will be beneficial for MEV capturing in the future. And then like cross-chain and LP position composability means that I think it'll sort of push forward what it means to be an LP and what you can get out of LP positions. And then we've seen a growth of like dark pools and RFQ on like pretty traditional TradFi things that have come back from TradFi into DeFi. So we've seen a growth of like dark pools on in DeFi, and we've seen RFQ with like OX, and I think Onchain also has that. And then we think that there'll be more protocol designs for like more cheaper and scalable protocols or for chains. So there's like for specifically like L2s, there's not really like L2 native DeFi infrastructure, so we think there'll be a big growth of those as well. So those are the sort of how we think about the future of AMMs and what that will look like. So, and that is the end of our talk. So we appreciate you guys coming out, and if you have any questions, feel free to come talk to us. So.